Dr. Tharp here. And as I always say, I am here tonight to help you understand how you can reverse type 2 diabetes naturally. I have multiple lives going right now. So anyone who wants to know how they can reverse their type 2 diabetes naturally, come on in. We are going to have a great discussion for about half an hour today. I will be on helping you understand what your problem is, why you're feeling stuck, and what you can do about it. Um, First, let me get the Instagram side of things up and running so that everyone knows that I'm here and that I am ready to help you reverse type 2 diabetes once and for all. All right. So, for anyone who is ready to reverse type 2 diabetes, come on in and let us have a talk about where you are and how you can overcome it. And I'm going to go ahead and share a diagram. For those of you on Instagram, you might see my little diagram there. The diagram is there to help you understand what your main problem is once and for all. So I'm going to go ahead and pull up my little diagram. I'm going to add it here to the screen so you can see firsthand what is happening inside of your body. You'll have a better understanding of exactly what's going on. All right, guys. Again, so if you are ready to reverse type 2 diabetes, come on in. We're about to get started. So I'm Dr. Tharp. I am board certified internal medicine physician, and I am a rare commodity. Why am I rare? It's because there are not many doctors out there that are dedicated to natural reversal of type 2 diabetes. There's a big void in that area, and that is why I decided to fill it, because I don't think a lot of you who struggle with type 2 diabetes have had that chance to turn things around, right? You were given the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes or pre-diabetes. You were told to move more, eat less, lose weight. The problem is you're told to do all of those things, but you walked out of your doctor's office not really understanding how to do it. You were kind of left to your own devices, right? And you're left to your own devices. What did you turn to? You might have turned to YouTube, and you might have stumbled across a few of my videos, right? Because I'm trying to spread the word. You stumbled onto Google, TikTok. You're turning to all of those resources to help you figure out how can I overcome type 2 diabetes and avoid the medications, right? Your worst fear is starting medications, and I completely understand that. As a physician, I do work as a hospitalist as well. So I see the worst case scenarios when it comes to type 2 diabetes. And I will say that believing that just medications is going to solve type 2 diabetes is a trap. It really is a trap. Believing that medications alone is going to solve the problem, it's a trap. Unfortunately, medications are there. It will help get your blood sugars down, but it's like a band aid. If you don't know what you're doing, ultimately, you're not going to achieve that blood sugar control that you're looking for. You're not going to achieve the true reversal that you're looking for. And then what ends up happening is you end up on a second medication, you end up on a third medication, you end up on a fourth medication. And then before you know it, you are on insulin. You're on insulin, you're struggling with neuropathy, you're being told you have chronic kidney disease. Or, I'm hoping that's not the case for many of you out there, but you're told you're on the brink of dialysis, right? All because of type 2 diabetes. So just remember the one of the biggest things I want you to walk away from this is, if you have been losing hope that you can naturally turn your numbers around, I'm here to tell you it's very possible. The problem is that the support and the right support has not been there for you. And that is why I do what I do. Type 2 diabetes is not it's not a sentence that you have to live with, okay? So just remember that. So I'm going to jump into how what it means to have type 2 diabetes. Why do you feel the way that you feel? Why do you have lack of energy? Why do you feel like you're gaining weight and you can't lose the weight? Why do you feel like, you have brain fog? Why is it that even after you've changed your diet, things just won't get any better? So let's first talk about where the problem lies. And the truth is that type 2 diabetes started years before you actually got that diagnosis. It started from insulin resistance, and there's really no test that's going to tell you that you have insulin resistance, right? And that is the challenge of it. You're told your numbers are normal, you're doing well, until one day you're not, and you don't understand how this happened. The reality is, this type 2 diabetes has been brewing for years before. When you started to notice that little, the fat around your belly accumulating, when you started to notice after you had a heavy meal that you just felt like crashing, when you felt like you had no energy, a couple hours after you ate a big meal, you're not feeling great. That is where you're struggling with insulin resistance. And you may not know it, again, because the conversation with your doctor does not start that early. So unfortunately, you're coasting through pre-diabetes, insulin resistance, not realizing that you are going down a dangerous path. And then all of a sudden, you're told you're pre-diabetic. Or for some of you who are even more, more unlucky, you are told you have type 2 diabetes. So let's first talk about what the numbers mean, right? Because some of you, you're hearing numbers and you're not quite sure where you fall. So if you've been told that you have a hemoglobin A1C of between 5.7 and 6.5, it means you're in the pre-diabetic range. It means the alarm bells should be going off. It means you are officially on your way to type 2 diabetes. If you do nothing about it, then very, very likely that's where you're going to end up. And some people move faster than others. In a couple months, you'll be there. In a year or two, you may be there. But eventually, you are headed to type 2 diabetes. And that might be very alarming for some of you to hear, because, you have family who you've watched struggle through type 2 diabetes. You've watched loved ones struggle through it. Maybe the line of work that you have, you've watched people struggle with type 2 diabetes. There's many women who are nurses who I work with who have watched it firsthand, and that's what prompted them to seek help. They've seen the devastation that type 2 diabetes can cause. So, again, this might terrify you, but I'm not trying to terrify you. I'm trying to tell you that type 2 diabetes is something you can prevent. You don't have to be on medications to do that. You can do it naturally. So if you're between a hemoglobin A1C of 5.7 and a hemoglobin A1C of 6.5, you are pre-diabetic. If you are anywhere 6.5 and above, you are officially in the diabetic range. Now, what do these numbers mean? It essentially means that your blood sugars are spiking. They're in the abnormal levels, and it means that those blood sugars are doing damage to your body. That's what it means. So, if your A1C is between is in the pre-diabetic range, then it means you have a blood sugar of between 100 and 125. So if you're someone who's checking your blood sugars and those numbers sound familiar and you're hitting numbers above 100, it means you're already there. You're in the pre-diabetic range, and it means it's time to do something. Now, a lot of you, before you actually officially hit type 2 diabetes, you knew something was wrong. You knew something was wrong. There's no doubt about it. When you're pre-diabetic, you feel it, right? After you eat a heavy meal and you think, okay, this meal is going to keep me over until, well into the day. Actually, I might not even have to eat again for the rest of the day. Within 2 hours, 3 hours, you are feeling exhausted, and your energy is crashing, and you may be even hungry again. You may feel like you want to snack again. And that is Not a coincidence. That's not just, one of those days. That is the high blood sugars wreaking havoc on your body. It's wreaking havoc on your hunger hormones. It's wreaking havoc on your hormones in general. Okay. So if you are feeling really terrible after you eat a meal and you can't understand why, it's very likely because your blood sugars are high and it's doing damage. It's wreaking havoc on your body. So that is why I have this graph here. Is I kind of want to show you exactly what's happening, right? So I think a piece of it might be cut off here. So I'm gonna enlarge the diagram just a bit so you can see what we're talking about. So here we have a blood sugar, someone who has a high A1C. So this is anyone who's above 5.7. So again, for those of you who have pre-diabetes, and you're saying, oh, I'm okay. I don't have diabetes, so I'm still okay. The reality is you are not okay. You are in a lot of danger and the blood sugars are doing damage. So you are not excluded from the damage that's happening. That damage is actively happening. So that damage doesn't magically start after you hit that A1C of 6.5. That damage is happening when your blood sugars are high. So anybody who has an A1C above 5.7 or blood sugars above 100, you're going through it's damaging your body. And this is what happens when you eat a diet high in processed foods. You eat a diet, you're insulin resistant and you're feeling low energy. So as you can see, anyone who has an A1C above 5.7, you have that meal. You don't think you might even feel like a healthy meal. You might think this is a healthy meal, or it might actually be a healthy meal. And what happens is because you have insulin resistance, because your body is not responding to insulin anymore, because insulin has such a hard time controlling these sugars, you have a very rapid spike. And that spike is where, you're not feeling that great, right? Because now you have high blood sugars. It's wreaking havoc on your nerves. It's wreaking havoc on your eyes, on your kidneys, on your heart, on your blood vessels, right? And that blood sugar spikes up, but then look what happens. It spikes up very fast, a very rapid rise, and then it drops dramatically. And you have almost a dead drop, right? And you're bottomed out before you know it. And it's at this bottomed out part that you're feeling fatigued. You're feeling like you could go and take a midday nap. You're feeling, like you just can't get through your workday because of how foggy your brain is. It's because your blood sugars have risen very quickly and dropped. It has not given you the energy you need because your body, your muscles, your organs, it's not responding to insulin. So your body and your organs and your brain is not getting the glucose it needs because the insulin isn't working. So that is why we call that insulin resistance, right? And so insulin resistance is what's happening inside your body to drive to type 2 diabetes. So type 2 diabetes is not a lack of insulin, it's the fact that insulin is not working in your body, okay? Now, let us look at someone who has a normal A1C. So this red spike here, that represents, for anybody who's coming in now, that red spike represents what is happening when your body is insulin resistant, you have pre-diabetes or even type 2 diabetes. For those of you or for those people who have normal A1Cs, who don't have the same problems with insulin resistance, and who's eating a very balanced meal, a meal that is addressing insulin resistance, look what happens. That blood sugar in the blue line goes up very slowly, and that gives you energy throughout the day. So you don't have that crash and burn like here. You go up rapidly and then you come back down quickly. When you're eating a balanced meal and you're eating to address insulin resistance, this is the type of spike that we're aiming for. A very gradual rise in blood sugar. You have sustained energy throughout the day. And guess what happens? Your weight is well controlled. And in some cases, you start to lose weight when you understand how to program your meals. So essentially, this is what's happening in your body. This is the simplest way to put it. When you're struggling with insulin resistance, with pre-diabetes, with type 2 diabetes, this is what's happening inside your body. Your body cannot access the glucose that's in your blood. That glucose is super high. Your organs can't access that glucose, and that glucose starts to poison your nerve endings and different organs in your body. So if you think that this is your main problem, if you can relate to this, then feel free to put a comment, saying, letting me know that this is how you feel. Feel free to share and like this live so other people will understand what's happening inside their bodies. Now, because I only have about 15 minutes left, I want to talk about the solution. And number one solution here is the right strategy. So if you are not interested in medications, well, first let's talk about why medications don't necessarily work. Let's go back to this spike here that you're seeing, right? This rapid rise and fall in your blood sugars. And what is happening here is that if you're going to be on medication, that medication is meant to treat this rapid rise, right? It's meant to bring that blood sugar back down. That is what the medication does. But the problem is that when you eat 2 meals for the day, you need the medication to get it down, right? You're not naturally getting those blood sugars down because you're not eating in a way that is going to address those blood sugars. So medication is there just to treat those spikes, right? Just to treat the symptoms, but it's not necessarily that long-term solution. And that is the problem with medications, is that if you are taking medications without understanding the solution and what you can do to long-term fix your blood sugars, then you're going to become overly reliant on medications. When you become overly reliant on medications and you're doing everything else the same, that medication efficacy or the effectiveness of that medication is going to wear off. And when that medication wears off, what's going to happen is you're going to get that second medication and that third medication. And for those of you who are on insulin, you've gone through that process already, unfortunately. And for those of you who are on insulin, you understand that you have to take insulin before every meal because now you're just treating spikes, right? You know, if you stop your insulin, the problem doesn't go away. In fact, the problem gets worse. So at this point, the big question that a lot of you have is, how do I naturally address my blood sugars? You don't want to be on medications. You definitely don't want to be on insulin. And you definitely don't want to face the complications down the line. So how do we do this? Well, there's many things that we do, okay? There's a system that comes into place. And that is why I founded the Reverse Now Challenge, because it's a system that's built in to help you understand what's happening with your blood sugars, why it's happening, and how you can structure your meals, your physical activity, your mindset to really target your blood sugars. And the reality is, in order to naturally reverse type 2 diabetes or to reverse insulin resistance, it really does boil down to a system. So for those of you who have relied on supplements, many of you who are watching this understand that the supplements and can attest that the supplements did not work, right? You tried the berberine supplements, you tried the cinnamon tea, the apple cider vinegar. I know all of them because a lot of the women who I've worked with have also tried those things and it did not work. The reality is there may be room for some benefit from supplements, but supplements alone will not solve your problem. So the first thing I want you to do is, if you are someone who is overly reliant or overly hopeful, you're investing all this hope in the supplements that you bought, that this is going to fix your problem. The first thing I want you to do is understand that it's not. Don't waste time doing just supplements. It's not going to work. and you're going to end up back in your doctor's office with an even higher A1C, maybe even full blown diabetes or even worse diabetes. So do not put all of your eggs in one basket. Supplements alone will not solve your problem. It really does boil down to a system and understanding what you can do. But a big part of that system is, and I'm sure you know this by now, you just haven't been able to tie down the formula, is your nutrition. That is where you're going to get a lot of bang for your buck, right? But I know how it works. I know that you were in your doctor's office, they gave you a handout, they told you you have diabetes, they told you your A1C was worse, and they gave you a handout, right? One sheet of paper that gave you maybe a list of the foods to eat. You went home, you tried, and it's not working. And that's what's leading to your frustration. And you've given up. You say, well, I've tried, I'm eating healthy, it's not working, and you've given up. And I'm here to tell you, no, do not give up. Your hope that you can avoid medications, your hope that you can reverse type 2 diabetes, and I'm not talking about just control it, you can reverse it if you understand how to structure your nutrition. So nutrition is key. Now, many of you here, there's some mistakes that you might be making. The first mistake, and one of the biggest mistakes that I see, is that you're not eating enough food. And unfortunately, there's a lot of women who suffer through deprivation, food deprivation, in a desperation to fix their type 2 diabetes, to fix their insulin resistance, to fix the pre-diabetes. And unfortunately, they're miserable, right? And what happens when you're miserable? When you're miserable, it's hard to keep up the changes that you've made, right? It's hard to push through a lot of these extreme steps that you're taking and to keep it up forever. And what I do is I teach you how to keep this up forever, right? To make it sustainable, enjoyable. And so you do not have to starve yourself. That's the first mistake you're making. And you're actually making things worse, right? The problem with insulin resistance is a problem of metabolism. But when you don't nourish your body and feed your body, that metabolism gets worse. That's when you start to feel worse. Your energy is in the pits. You have the brain fog. You wake up with no energy. You're up late at night. You can't sleep at night. It's because you are not eating in a well balanced way. So the first thing I want to first stress the mistakes that you're making, so you can start to understand how to move away from those mistakes. You should be eating more. Okay, so for those of you who are intermittent fasting, I am a believer in intermittent fasting, but intermittent fasting is not for the layman, right? It's not for beginners. It's not something that you just do. It's something that you have to do in a guided way. It's something that you have to do in a way that will truly allow you to nourish your body, but also achieve diabetes reversal. Intermittent fasting the wrong way will get you into trouble. So if you're someone who's eating breakfast at 1 p.m. because you're determined to only have maybe a 5-hour window eating period, so you eat between 1 and 6 p.m., you get maybe one meal in, you're snacking along the way, maybe. That's not the right way to do it. Okay. So the first thing I want you to start doing is, if you're intermittent fasting, I want you to shift that intermittent fasting window from the daytime, when you need all your energy, right? You need to be nourishing your body, and shift it to the nighttime. So eat the nighttime a 12-hour fast, right? So if you go from 8 p.m. to 8 a.m., that's a 12-hour fast, and you are good, right? So I want you, if you are practicing intermittent fasting and you've been doing this for years and it's not working for you, I am here to tell you it's not working because you're not nourishing your body adequately. So the first move I want you to make is to shift that intermittent fasting to the nighttime. 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. or 5 p.m. to 5 a.m. So whenever you should be fasting when you are sleeping. Okay. So that is the first thing, the first shift that I'm gonna ask you to make is start eating through the day, eat your breakfast, eat your lunch, eat your dinner. And that is where you're gonna start to feel your energy coming back. So for those of you who are looking for a strategy and you've been using intermittent fasting as a strategy and you've only been getting one meal in a day, stop doing that. Shift your fasting window to the nighttime and start eating meals throughout the day. The second big tip that I'm going to give, the second big tip, and I hope you're writing this down. I hope you're taking note, and I hope that this week you'll actually implement it. And I promise you, you are going to notice a shift in your energy. But again, you're going to have to give your body time to adjust to that shift as well, right? Because the damage didn't happen overnight. The damage took years to happen. A solution isn't going to happen overnight. So, one thing I always advise to the women who I do work with directly, I always caution, do not come into this thinking I'm offering an overnight solution. For those people out there who are selling supplements and selling the berberine, they're selling to you and something that's too good to be true. They're selling to you an overnight fix, and that is where the red flag should be going off, right? If the damage took years to happen, it's definitely not going to happen overnight. So that is the other thing that's the other reality that you have to face, is that reversing type 2 diabetes does take time. It takes doing the work. It takes time. Takes making the commitment. It is definitely doable. So reversing type 2 diabetes is not an overnight fix. You have to give yourself time. So once you shift your fasting window, you're eating more food, give it time. Now, of course, we've talked about the fasting window. We've talked about eating more. But the other things that we have to think about is, what are you eating, right? That's the big thing, is what are you eating? And there's no way I'm going to be able, because I have 10 minutes before I have to actually meet with one of my wonderful clients. But what are you eating is the big question. So the first thing I want to challenge you to do, and this is one of the big tips, I'm going to leave you with two big tips. The two big misconceptions, or one big let's start with the biggest misconception out there, is that carbohydrates are bad. So what do? You shift to a carnivore diet, right? You cut out carbs completely out of your diet. You shift to a keto diet. And that is a big mistake as well. So carbs are not the enemy. Carbs are not the enemy. So if there's a takeaway tonight, remember, carbs aren't the enemy. The enemy is processed foods, right? And unfortunately, processed foods have flooded the market, right? The food market, the food industry. Processed foods offer us convenience. Processed foods offer us quick solutions. It offers us, it makes us, it tastes good, so we enjoy it, right? We love it. But processed foods are the enemy here. So what is a processed food? A processed food is anything that does not look like its natural form. So if you want another challenge that I want to pass on to you for this week. So the first thing is, if you're intermittent fasting, shift that fast to the nighttime, eat more, okay? The second is that I want you to eliminate processed foods from your diet, period. So this week, I want you to focus on eliminating processed foods. Anything that does not look like its natural form, eliminate it from your diet. Okay. That is the next thing. So, for example, let us talk about wheat bread. Whole wheat bread is definitely processed, right? Even though wheat bread has been marketed as healthy, as a healthy solution to type 2 diabetes, unfortunately, it's not. So if you are eating even whole wheat bread, of course, the white bread we know is bad. Cut that white bread out. but whole wheat bread is also a problem. Okay, you want to go with as less processed as possible. So cut that processed foods out and replace it with something that is less processed, okay, or not processed at all. So when I say less processed, the bread that I would recommend that you start to incorporate is Ezekiel bread. So start with Ezekiel bread. Ezekiel bread is not found on your regular bread shelves. Ezekiel bread is actually found in the freezer section of your supermarket. Ezekiel bread. So that is the first change I want you to make is cut out processed foods, cut out anything that is white bread, the crackers, the crackers, the bread, the wraps. Cut those things out because at this point there is no benefit in them. They have been stripped of their nutrients, they've been stripped of the fiber, and all it does is spike your blood sugar. So if you're going to make a big change, remember your body needs carbohydrates, but you definitely do not need the processed carbohydrates. Now, I think it's common sense here. I know that a lot of you who are watching, a lot of the women here who are struggling with type 2 diabetes and are watching tonight, I know that you've already done these things, okay? But if you haven't done these things, if you have not taken these steps, then it's one of the easiest steps that you can take is start to cut back on the processed foods. Go for whole foods. So one of my favorites, actually two of my favorites that I'll suggest is have squash, have sweet potato. Those are excellent sources of fiber, excellent source of carbohydrates where you're going to get your energy from. It's not going to spike your blood sugar. So again, if you look at my little diagram here, sweet potato is not going to give you the red spike. It's going to give you the blue spike. Okay, it's going to give you a nice rise and fall, and it's going to give you energy throughout the day. Now, my last tip for tonight, and I will be coming on 2 to 3 times a week where I'll give different tips. But my next big tip for those of you who are struggling with type 2 diabetes, you're trying on your own, you feel stuck. The next thing I want you to do is to increase your protein with every meal. So I've already challenged you to eat more. Eat more food throughout the day. So eat your 3 to 4 meals a day. For some of you, it'll be even more frequent meals. But with each of those meals, have a protein. So for those of you who, you're having, you're having 1 egg for breakfast, I'm here to break the news to you. 1 egg does not count as enough protein. 2 eggs does not count as enough protein. 3 eggs still does not count as enough protein. So if you thought you were eating 2 eggs in the morning and you're good on protein, absolutely not. Okay. So that is your first tip that very likely you're not getting enough protein in your diet. And why is the eating better carbohydrates and eating more protein important for type 2 diabetes? It blunts the spike, the dangerous spike that damages your body, the dangerous spike that's damaging your organs. That eating the wrong carbohydrates and eating too little protein is going to lead to this spike. You want to blunt those blood sugar spikes. You want to prompt your body to use the glucose in your blood. And how you're going to do that is eating enough protein. So for some of you, protein is about 1 gram of protein per pound of ideal body weight. Okay, 1 gram of protein per pound of your target weight. So if you do have excess body fat to lose, then at that point you want to think about what your ideal weight is, and you want to aim for that amount of protein in your diet. If you do those 3 things, so just to summarize quickly before I jump off of the live, because I have to meet with one of my clients tonight, is number 1, eat enough protein, more protein. So if you're somebody who's eating a scrambled egg in the morning and you're thinking you're okay with protein, you're not. Eat about 1 gram of protein per pound of target body weight. That is what you're aiming for, or just aim for 100 grams of protein a day. I think that's a safe enough number for now. Everybody's body is different, but for now, if you start with 100 grams of protein a day, you're in good shape. The second is eat better carbohydrates. Cut out the processed stuff. So anything that doesn't look natural, cut it out. Do that this week, and you will see a difference. So go for your foods that like beans. Go for your sweet potato. Go for your squashes. Go for the carbohydrates that are really going to give you good energy, but not spike your blood sugar as tremendously. Again, you have to, there are nuances, but if you just make that small change this week, you'll very likely see a difference. And then the third thing is, if you are someone who has been relying on fasting as a strategy, remember you have to do it the right way. You can get into trouble with intermittent fasting if you're doing it the wrong way. Shift your fasting window to nighttime and focus on nourishing your body throughout the day. So with that, I am going to close out for tonight. I appreciate everyone who has tuned in. For those of you who want strategy, who want accountability, who want the guidance, I have my Reverse Now Challenge, a 12-week program where I work with you one-on-one to get your blood sugars down naturally. And again, I am a physician who has dedicated my time and my practice to helping you reverse type 2 diabetes naturally and honestly to safely avoid the trap of being on medications, because we know one med leads to the second, leads to the third, and then when complications start, you're on even more medications. So I am here I've dedicated my time, my purpose to working one-on-one with women to help them really regain control of their blood sugars and to feel in control again. All right, guys, with that, I'm going to close off. Like, share, follow, so that you will know when I'm on here, so other people will know that they can, in fact, reverse type 2 diabetes naturally. They can reverse in pre-diabetes naturally. So share, like, follow, and I would appreciate any comments that you want to leave under the live. Please go ahead and I will definitely respond to you directly with any questions that you have. All right, guys, have a good night.